Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Calls. This is the 2025 St. Jude Data Dive Show. Per usual on a Monday night, we're going to take our first look at the forecast for Memphis, Tennessee, see if some weather is going to affect the tournament at all this week. We're going to take a deep statistical dive into TPC Southwind. Not as deep as usual because there's only 2 years of data, but whatever data there is, we'll take a look at. Didn't post any research for TPC Southwind and the St. Jude, but we'll go over some previous history here at the tournament. So anything and everything that you need to continue on looking in lineups and contemplating wagers, we'll have for you tonight. I have a few shout outs to give, but first, I hit the 200 subscriber mark today. I know this is a tiny channel in the grand scheme of things, but I really cannot express enough gratitude to you all for subscribing to the channel, liking the videos, commenting, all of that. Never thought I'd get to 200 subscribers just talking about golf, but here we are. So again, very, very much from the bottom of my heart, thank you for all the support. I do have some shout outs I want to give, so let me do that very quickly. In addition to, as I mentioned last night, Darnell's win in MLB last week. Longtime viewer Rose hit the Cam Young outright this week at the Wyndham Championship at 50-1. So congratulations, Rose, on your big hit. You also had another top 10. And then another member of the channel, Joanne, hit a couple of top 10s. Jackson Koivoon is the one that is coming to mind. Davis Thompson, I think, was the other one. So congratulations on your success. Really glad to hear, and I'm happy to shout out members of the community who have success. So glad to hear that you had a great Wyndham Championship. And as always, if you had success for the Wyndham, or doesn't have to be golf related, as I mentioned, Darnell has had some MLB success. You know, fantasy football is coming up. If you have fantasy football success, feel free to let me know in chat or in the comments of the shows. I will be more than happy to shout out members of the community who have success. So congratulations to all three of you. And as we move forward, let me know about your thoughts regarding TPC Southwind, FedEx St. Jude, playoffs in general. But we have a lot to cover, so let's get into it. All statistics provided tonight and every night are from FantasyNational.com. It is the best golf analytic tool out there for your money. Go check out FantasyNational.com. You will not regret it. In the description of the video, there are links to all the social media. First off, my X and Instagram, where, as I alluded to earlier, I normally post research regarding some course information, some past or some patterns of past champions for the tournament of that week. Didn't do anything for TPC Southwind and the St. Jude since in its current iteration we've only had 2 years. But if you want to see the weekly research that I normally do on the PGA Tour, give me a follow at your preferred social media site. X is also where I place my weekly betting cards and top player usage in the DFS contests I play. That comes out every Wednesday after the DFS Tactics show. So if you want to see the players I've wagered, which I've made a few today already, you want to see those, you want to see the players I'm using most often in my lineups, give me a follow over at X. Lastly, for social media, Gabe's handle's in the description. He writes a great article called The Fringe. Can't recommend it enough. And by subscribing to his article, you're going to be able to get his deluxe version, which comes out early every Wednesday. Has his favorite plays, any wave advantage that he sees, highlights players in that regard, top plays, top values, and projected ownerships. So make sure you're subscribed to his article and follow him over on social media, because that is where we put our detailed write-ups for the 2025 Picks Challenge. I had a 5-point lead going into the Wyndham. I'm pretty sure I built that lead with how much success I had. So we'll see where the standings are come Wednesday night for that. So make sure you're following Gabe over on social media, show him some support. Lastly, we are live. Chat's open. Want to hear from you all. In addition to any success, left over from the Wyndham, moving forward to the St. Jude. What do you think of this week? Is Scotty your favorite? Do you think somebody makes a big run all the way to Eastlake, who might not be at the top of the FedEx Cup standings? So anything and everything playoffs or St. Jude specifically, feel free to jump in the chat, put your thoughts and opinions in there. If you're not able to catch a show live, put your thoughts and opinions into the comments. I'll always get to those as well. But we have a lot to get into. Let's get into it. Let's dig into the weeds of the data for the 2025 St. Jude. And we are going to start, as we always do on a Monday night, with the extended look of the forecast for Memphis, Tennessee. We've had a very, very stormy and wet summer. I say we. I'm not terribly local to Memphis, but I am roughly in the same portion of the country, if you will. There looks to be maybe a little bit of rain today down in Memphis, maybe a little bit tomorrow. This is just summer in the Midwest, pop-up storms and whatnot. But I don't believe they had much rain at the end of last week. And there is not very much rain for Wednesday or throughout the entirety of the tournaments. Sunday, Saturday, Friday, no rain in the forecast. It is going to be hot. Highs in the 90s throughout the entirety of the tournament. So I have a strong inclination that this is going to be as fast and as firm as the tournament organizers want the course to be. There also doesn't appear to be very much wind. Sure, we might get some gusts, nearing 20 at various times during the tournament, but like Thursday looks very calm, single digit gusts even. Friday, maybe the wind picks up a little bit, but for right now, unless this forecast changed, we're going to just take a look at, or we're not going to take a look at any wind. We're not going to look at moderate or windy conditions because the forecast does not say or suggest to do so. So there's a look at the extended forecast for Memphis, Tennessee, and the St. Jude Classic. We will move now to Fantasy National. Take a look at a few things just very, very quickly. With how calm the winds look, I do think this is going to play a little bit easier than what TPC Southwind would normally do, especially since we have the top 70 players here in the field, or 69 technically. So if we wanted to take a look at that, I will include 2024. Let's take a look at easy relative to par and all rounds. Your top performers in rounds that have been easy relative to par in the field for the St. Jude this week: Akshay Bhatia, Scotty, Justin Thomas, Eric Van Rooyen, Ben Griffin, Colin Morikawa, Matt McNeely, Daniel Berger, Harry Hall, Ludwig, and Xander. Those two tied for 10th, just sneaking into the bottom of the top 10. Again, this is a little bit of a stretch because TBC Southwind is pretty darn difficult. There aren't a whole lot of scoring opportunities. Not a whole lot. The two par fives, obviously, best scoring opportunities. You have a few par fours in here. Par 4 second, the par 4 sixth. But you'll notice that all of these are shorter, or on the short end of the par 4 range. You got 401, 445. In fact, one of the par 3s plays under par, 171. Par 4 395. They're all shorter. They're all on the in that 400 to 450 range, where the 3 par 4s that play under par generally at TBC Southwind fall. So I don't know if I'm going to use any easy relative to par filter, but at least with that forecast and the quality of the field, I could see, I could envision a lot of scores, kind of like 2023, if you will. Let's take a look at that very quickly, where the winning score was only 15 under, but there weren't very many scores over par. What's this, maybe 7 or 8? And then if we look at last year's, not there. Max Homa had a terrible week. There were a few more scores over par last year, about 12 or so. So I don't see anybody going, full max Homa, going plus double digits this week. But this is TBC Southwind. I do think we'll see a winning score in the upper teens. So I don't know if I want to look at easy in particular with some specific filter or like some specific metrics, but it's not a bad idea just to kind of look at it in totality or as an overview. Good evening, Rose. Thanks for jumping in chat. Very much appreciated. You made it. That's right. Did give you and Joanne your due shout out in the intro for your win with Cam Young last week. So we're going to try and see if we can't make it 2 in a row for you. We're going to try and keep the momentum that I've had for seemingly the past 6 or so weeks. But it's good to see you in chat this evening. Very much appreciated. That's well deserved. I'm always willing to nag on myself, if you will, and have fun at my expense whenever I get things wrong. But you feel pretty good when you get things right. And I've felt pretty good for the past 6 weeks. So hitting it outright is always fun. With no architect filter here in Fantasy National, this is a Ron Pritchard design. So no architect filter to look at. This course is fairly long for being a par 70. It's right at 7,300 yards. I'm just out of curiosity, let's take a look at long par 70s and what courses those are. So we have Colonial, Memorial Park, which is the host of Houston. That's a very difficult course. The Renaissance Club, TBC Southwind. It's a very small sample size. Colonial, 4 different courses. You can see just in this year and last year, we don't have too many rounds. But on these longer par 70s, par 70s that measure 7,200 plus yards, your top performers have been Scotty, Wyndham Clark, Xander, Tony Finau, Victor, Taylor Pendrith, Stephan Jaeger, Hideki, Aaron Ryan, Matt Fitzpatrick. So again, a little bit of a small sample size here, but quite specialty, considering there's not many courses here that are longer par 70s, but absolutely fits the bill for TBC Southwind. Kind of hard for me to go against Scotty. I tend to agree, considering how good he has been here the past couple of years. 4th last year, and then I know it was a little bit worse 2 years ago, being 31st. So, probably just a little bit of a bad week, but he's had a lot of success here. I don't think I can bet him at his number. Last I saw, it was essentially 3-1, a little bit less than that. I don't think I can wager that, or at least I haven't wagered that for this week. I did put in some wagers this morning, but Scotty, rightfully so, heavy favorite this week, at least before the tournament starts. So there's a look at some of your top long par 70 performers. Particularly interesting because this is a traditional par 70, lack of par 5 scoring. Players are going to have to do very well on par 4s, which we'll get into. Other than those two things, the long par 70s, the easy relative to par, which is a little bit more subjective, I suppose. Not really a whole lot to dig into in terms of filters. So let's go ahead and go to Microsoft Excel, and I'll bring up the early look file here. Oh, excuse me, no, this is I'm jumping the gun a little bit. Let's go to the detail for the St. Jude. Now, remember, this is a 70-man field starting two years ago. So 70-man field, and I'm collecting stats for the top 30. So we do have some middling performances in this data set. You can argue not to go down that much, but I'm doing the top 30 because it's a nice round number, and that happens to be amount that makes it to East Lake every year. So if we take a look at some deep statistical dive into St. Jude, we notice that around the green and off the tee are roughly the same. Around the green has been very, very consistent both years, about a 0.6 for the top 30 players. Off the tee did not have a whole lot last year. It was a decent factor in 2023. A lot of times I don't like using all 4 strokes gained in a mixed condition model. I do think this is one of those weeks where it's warranted, because players are going to have to be pretty darn good off the tee. There are a lot of dog legs around TPC Southwind, so players are going to have to be accurate off the tee, but they're also going to have to be able to take advantage with their driver when the opportunity presents itself. So we'll be looking at both of these for sure. It's striking to see that the around the green is as consistent as it is. Approach, we're obviously not going to ignore this by any means. Just look for placement because Scotty is cooking. If you're talking wager wise, maybe. Depends on how much you're willing, what you're willing to risk, whether that's like top 3, top 5, all of that, or look for placements in other players like you mentioned. Player X top 10, player Y top 20, etc. Yeah, it's one way to look at it. I just went to the outright market. I put in 3 outright or win wagers at numbers that I felt were fair. Obviously, I would have liked them to have been bigger, but I thought they were fair considering their form and one player in particular, how well they've played here the past couple of years. So we're definitely going to look at approach, and then putting. Putting seems to be interesting, and I'll be curious to see how Hideki and Lucas Glover were putting coming into TPC Southwind, because everything I've heard and read this week is that these greens aren't overly complicated. Don Ross, the course architect for the Wyndham and the 3M and places like that, and of course Pinehurst, his greens are very, very tricky. There's a lot of slope, a lot of undulation. Everything I've heard and read is that these greens aren't very difficult to putt on. There's not a whole lot of slope in them. So I'm more interested to see if players have good form putting coming into this, as opposed to say like or maybe looking at some Bermuda specialists, as opposed to just thinking putting is extremely important on its own. We move to fairways and greens, and I'm actually wanting to, for some reason this is like grayed out, but you would see, let me see if I can fix that very quick. There we go. That was weird. Did you all see the same thing where that was grayed out? It was kind of weird considering I was expecting to see the headers there. We move to distance and greens. Distance, not a factor. It's actually been negative. Good evening, Joanne. Thanks for jumping in chat. Very much appreciated. It's good to see both you and Rose in chat this evening. I did give you both your due diligence, but or due credit. So you both got your shout out during the intro. So congratulations again on a very good Wyndham. And then moving forward to the FedEx, we're going to try and keep the momentum. I think this year at St. Jude, he's going to want more. I think he's going to be more passionate about this event because his son could have been. It's just my opinion. That goes into something that I've talked about a lot of times, in the past, is that if you could find a way to quantify the qualitative, if you will, or like a player's mindset, things like that, you'd be a very, very rich person. If there's a way you could quantify that and put it into statistics. So, because you're starting to get into subjective stuff and you're starting to write your own narratives and whatnot. That's pretty hard to do. As I was talking about with distance, Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I mean, somebody asked me about the Open or before the Open Championship. Did it worry me that Scotty said that winning golf wasn't his main focus? And I said no. I commended him for that. So, I'm a big fan of Scotty's in that regard. So, again, talking about distance, just not a factor. Like I said, there's a lot of forced layups here. Yes, players will use driver when it is reasonable to do so, or when the opportunity presents itself. But there are a lot of forced dog legs that make this course play a lot longer than what you think, and it's more precision off the tee than length. Good Hard Person is going to win this event. We'll see. I mean, again, that's the narrative you want to write, or that you have in mind, with it being like the St. Jude, or around the St. Jude and what St. Jude does in terms of the Children's Hospital and all that. Sure. Fairways, greens, both pretty important. We saw last night, greens are not easy to hit here, so we're going to take a look at some greens, I think, especially tonight. I don't know if it makes it into the mixed condition model. Definitely going to look at some good drives gained, I would think. Players hitting fairways, players hitting greens. So I do like this good drives gained metric, at least for this evening, at least as a good starting point, I would think. Moving to scoring, 2 years, 1 year pretty high, 1 year pretty low for birdies, but the bogey avoidance has been consistent. It's been consistent. So I'm more inclined to think about bogey avoidance this week. I don't know. We could probably look at both. One thing's for sure, there are not a lot of eagles around TPC Southwind. You really have one good eagle opportunity. That's the par 5 on the back. So anything we look in terms of birdies would just be birdies, not birdies or better. But I'm more inclined to think about the bogey avoidance, considering how consistent it has been, and it's basically on par with the birdies gained. Which, just to give you a little bit of a look into some of the background detail, like on the PGA Tour at the average course, birdies are about a half a shot more than bogey avoidance. So to see at Southwind bogeys be even essentially with birdies means to me, or at least says to me, that bogeys is something we should look at this week. Maybe some double bogey avoidance. We'll see. Par 3s, they're going to have a factor. They weren't a big deal last year, but you can see in 2023 just how much they I see something like a psychic. Well, if I mean, it's not really a big limb that you're going out on with Scotty, or saying Scotty's going to win, but 2 winners in a row. If you do end up hitting, like, say three outrights and 4 or something, then I'll come to you and get my palm reading. Again, like I said, these par 3s, we're gonna have a factor for sure. Look at 2 years ago with Lucas Glover's win, 1.2, whereas the par 5s were only a quarter of a shot. So I mean, a heavy emphasis in the par 3s, at least totality of par 3s. There's not really a range that jumps off the page. You can argue the 175 to 200, but it wasn't that big of a deal last year. So we'll just probably take a look at all par 3s. Now par 4 is a different story altogether. A lot in these 2 ranges here. In fact, even a little bit in the 350 to 4. But heavy emphasis in par 4s. Again, there are 12 par 4s here. Only 2 par 5s. You see how little they have made up the past 2 years. So we're going to look at these 3 ranges of par 4s, mainly these 2, but the 350 to 4 have also garnered some importance. Looking at proximity, not a whole lot here. The most approach shots here come from this range, or from these ranges. There isn't a whole lot here. I don't know. I just don't see a whole lot here. Total procs. I mean, these greens are small, so that doesn't seem like it makes a whole lot of sense. Yeah, I don't know. This is one of the curiosities statistically with proximity is that they're very, very volatile. They're very, they're not very consistent, and I don't like that as a statistician. So anyway, there's a look at some of the deep statistical dive into the data surrounding TPC Southwind. We'll move back to Fantasy National, but we're not going to go to the players just yet. Let's take a look quickly at these leaderboards. Still like Hovland this week, looking at Fitzpatrick. Plays all right here. Fitz has played well past couple of years. I will say, Joanne, after doing some more digging on Victor Hovland, we might see him on my betting card later this week. I'm still a little concerned about his around the green, but it's hard to deny just how hot he is with the irons. If we click on Hovland, we did this last night, but again, just how well he has done with the irons lately. Again, I'm not looking at this in any sense of the imagination. This is a complete aberration. But if he is just feel average in terms of around the green, could be decent for him. So the more I looked at Victor, the more I liked what I saw. This guy showed me something his last win. Have been doing what most people have been trying to do and go against Scotty. No, not no more. Yeah. Again, without having any projected ownerships, and I know the pricing came out today. I have no idea what any of the pricing is. I just like going through the first part of the week without the pricing, just to get an idea on some of these guys. Like for whatever reason, for me, if I were to see pricing here, that might alter the way I look at a player. I know it shouldn't, but I'm just being transparent with you as the viewer. It can have an effect with me of seeing pricing here. So that's why I don't even worry about it. I just kind of want a blind resume test, if you will. Bet Scotty if I'm doing it for fun. Yeah. Let's just really quickly, because we still have a little bit to cover. Let's just really quickly take a look at some of the metrics here from these past two leaderboards. Figure out where we might want to put some of our attention beyond what we just went through in Microsoft Excel. We've noticed that the around the green and the off the tee the past couple of years have been exactly the same, although the off the tee was 1 year was not very consistent, and 1 year was high, 1 year was low, whereas the around the green's been pretty darn consistent both years. Having said that, Hideki wasn't very good last year around the green. He just put the daylights out, which you don't expect from Hideki. Yeah, and then if we look at Lucas Glover's win from 2 years ago, you still had a couple players high in the around the green. What you don't see is a whole lot of negative up here in terms of approach. Like Jordan Spieth being -1.5, that's not great, but it's not a not a -4 or whatever Hideki was in terms of around the green. So a lot of iron play. There isn't a whole lot to be gained in this off the tee, it looks like. I mean, yeah, you have a third and a sixth. Around the green, you had a second, sixth, first, and a sixth here. So that lends itself to perhaps being a little bit more in the around the green than I thought. Fourth and a second, but then it's pretty middling here in terms of off the tee, whereas the around the green, and not too much from last year. Just bet some of your winnings on Scotty and be grateful is what I'm getting. Yeah. Putting, people who are putting well are going to be winning. I don't know. We're going to put a lot of emphasis in approach for sure. Still think we want to look at off the tee and around the green. We'll come back to these prior leaderboards, but let's take a look at some of the players who have been doing well at these various metrics that we looked at in Microsoft Excel. Again, I'm not going to use any filter for this. I don't like using this, medium length course filter or length filter. I could combine it with the par 70, but that's a really small sample size. So in the past 36 rounds, so long as it's been this year, but in the past 36 rounds, your top off the tee players: Chris Goddard, Potgeider, Kevin Yu, Scotty, Ludwig, Corey Connors, Patrick Cantlay, Colin Morikawa, Ben Griffin, and Aaron Rai are your top 10. And again, not going so much with distance as opposed to accuracy. So I'm more interested in things like good drives gained, hitting greens, things like that. Well, there's your top off the tee players. Top approach players past 36 rounds: Scotty, Victor, Shane Lowry, Sepp Straka, Colin Morikawa, Daniel Berger, Akshay Bhatia, Hideki, Patrick Cantlay, and Bud Cauley. This does include the Wyndham, which Akshay was really bad, considering he withdrew, so he drops a little bit, because I believe he was top 3 or 4 last night when looking at approach. Looking at around the green, top around the green players: Sung Jae, so he's the worst player in terms of irons, 69th out of 69, but first in around the green. So Sung Jae, Keegan, Russell Henley, Tommy, Sam Stevens, Hideki, Davis Riley, Siwoo, J-Day, and Scotty are your top 10 in terms of around the green. Scotty's the real Iron Man. I mean, kind of hard to beat: 4th, 1st, 10th, and 3rd. When your worst statistic is 10th in terms of the top 70 players in the FedEx Cup or on the PGA Tour, I mean, considering he's such a bum around the green, Scotty is just one of a kind. I know a lot of people have started talking about, his place in terms of where he ranks historically and stuff. Like, let him play a few more years, but he is on a. I don't think it's unfair to Scotty to say that he is on an all-time great trajectory. And then we'll take a look at putting in the last 36 rounds, and then we'll take a look at some Bermuda specific stuff. Your top putters the past 36 rounds: Sam Burns, Harry Hall, Scotty, McCarthy, Bridgman, JT, Cameron Young, J-Day, Nico Echeverria, and Sam Stevens. Again, congratulations on your hit, Rose, on Cameron Young. I do worry that I don't want to call it smoke and mirrors, because he was very good ball striking wise. I'm not taking anything away from Cam Young there, but you can't bank on him to gain 10 a whole lot. Having said that, he gained 8 at the U.S. Open, and he gained 5 and 6. So he's got these huge spike performances with the putter in him, but seeing 10, that was his highest in his career. So I wouldn't expect that from Cam Young. But so long as his ball striking continues the way it has been, or at least the way it was at the Wyndham, he is a force to be reckoned with, for sure. But I wanted to point out that he gained 10 on those greens at the Wyndham, and that's unsustainable. There's a look at your top 10 putters. I'll expand the time frame. Gosh dang it, I didn't mean to click bent, you moron. Bermuda. We're on Bermuda. We're gonna look at fast Bermuda. Your top putters on fast Bermuda, going back to last year: Jacob Bridgman, McCarthy. There's Scotty again, Sam Burns, Grazerman, Patrick Rogers, Nico Echeverria, Mackenzie Hughes, Harris English, and Russell Henley. And then the last thing we'll take a look at is the specific courses that have TIFF Eagle Bermuda. And of course, I meant to have my notes out, and I left them in my drawer. So let's see. We have Bay Hill, we have Kapalua, PGA National, host of what used to be the Honda, now the Cognizant, Kapalua, Port Royal, and Sea Island, the Seaside course. So we'll add those filters. Your top putters on TIFF Eagle Bermuda greens, specifically TIFF Eagle Bermuda greens. Look at there, Joanne. Your shout from earlier this evening, Matt Fitzpatrick, the number one putter on that surface, at least going back to, say, 2022. Sam Burns, Ben Griffin, Jordan Spieth, Mackenzie Hughes, Jacob Bridgman, Echeverria, Ludwig, Sungjae, and J.J. Spawn. So, again, I'll be interested to see what the putting looks like from Hideki and Lucas Glover when we go back to Microsoft Excel and look at some of the research type stuff. But there's a look at some strokes gained for the players in the field this week. We'll move to fairways and greens. And again, I just don't envision distance being a big deal. So if we look at fairways, top fairways gained players, like Berger is still, under field average, but it's not atrocious like Brian Campbell or Russell Henley. Berger, Griot, Ryan Gerard maybe. But you can see these fairway finders are generally lacking in distance. There's your top fairways gained players. I want to look at good drives. I think this is where a lot of emphasis is going to be put for me this week. Your top good drives gained players the past 36 rounds. Aaron Rai, Connors, Berger, Henley, Scotty, Griot, Shane Lowry, Tommy Fleetwood, Siwoo, and Harris English. We could look at greens as well, considering these greens are very, very difficult to hit. Saw this last night in the course breakdown. Fairways aren't easy to hit either. Greens, not easy to hit. Just very quickly, top greens gained players: Scotty, Cantley, Connors, Goddard, Henley, Daniel Berger, Griffin, Aaron Rai, Sepp Straka, Xander. And then I do want to look at some scrambling. Even though scrambling is easier than the average tour event, I think players are going to scramble quite a bit here with all the water that's in play. And scrambling does have a little bit of putting kind of hidden into it. So your top scramblers the last 36 rounds: Mackenzie Hughes, Hideki, Scotty, Tommy Fleetwood, Tom Hoagie, Denny McCarthy, Russell Henley, Ben Griffin, Ricky Fowler, and Siwoo. If we take a look at scrambling on Bermuda greens, this ought to be a little bit more interesting as well. Top scramblers on Bermuda greens: Minwoo, Hideki, Andrew Novak, Mackenzie Hughes, Jake Knapp, Bud Cauley, Tommy, Ben Griffin, Keegan, and Harry Hall. So, a lot to consider in this page view. I'm definitely going to be looking at good drives. I might have some fairways. I want to put some greens in the mixed condition model, but I'm afraid that's going to be too much emphasis in this page view, because I do think scrambling, I think it's worthwhile to put 5% in scrambling with how much scrambling players are going to be doing this week. Like I mentioned, all the water in play, all the greens that are going to get missed, and that's why I'm going to have a little bit of around the green as well. Scrambling also helps because, as I mentioned, it has a little bit of putting kind of built in or mixed into it with it as well. So a lot to consider on this page view. We're going to go to scoring. I guess we'll look at birdies and bogey avoidance. Your top birdies gained players. Yeah, we'll uncheck the Bermuda. We'll just take a look at last 36 rounds in general. Top birdies gained: Scotty, JT, Harry Hall, Victor, Jake Knapp, Spawn, Cameron Young, Matty Schmid, Rose, and Potgeider. Scotty first in both, so clearly the big star there. Harry Hall, worth an honorable mention, absolutely, 3rd and 12th. Excellent there. Cameron Young, 7th and 21st. Xander, 14th and 8th. Connors, 16th and 2nd. Bud Cauley, to a lesser extent, top 20 in both. Tommy and Sam Burns, top 25 in both. Ricky, top 25 in both. Interesting. If we take a look just on Bermuda greens, because you could argue some putting is hidden into this as well. Top birdies gained players last 36 rounds on Bermuda greens: JT, Minwoo Lee, Akshay, Harry Hall, Sepp Straka, Jake Knapp, J-Day, Russell Henley, Jaeger, Grazer, and Palgeider. And if we look at bogey avoidance, Scotty, Michael Kim, Minwoo Lee, Jaeger, Spawn, Bud Cauley, Fleetwood, Spieth, Straka, Jake Knapp, and Keegan on Bermuda greens. So some things to consider in here as well. We're definitely going to be looking at bogey avoidance. I don't know if I'm going to use this Bermuda filter or not. I don't know if I'm going to use, because it's definitely not going to be difficult, I don't think, this week. So, I don't know. Don't know where I'm going to go with that. But I definitely want to factor in some bogey avoidance. Finalize this with looking, normally I would look at proximity, but again, statistically, it didn't really show much in Microsoft Excel. If you were so inclined to believe in the approach shot distribution here, you would look at, you say 150 to 200, which would make a lot of sense considering a lot of the approach shots come from these ranges. But it just statistically, it didn't add up to anything. But if you wanted to take a look, it would be these two ranges here. So Scotty, Morikawa, Hideki 4th and 5th, Glover 16th in both, Hovland 1st and 4th, Patia, some others here that are good in both, Shane Lowry, Patrick Cantlay, Matty Schmid 4th and 20th, kind of interesting. There's a look at some of those. I don't think I'm going to have anything in terms of proximity in my mixed condition model. Par 3s, we're going to look at all par 3s. We do want to avoid this column. There is no par 3 that is going to play over 225 yards here at TBC Southwind. So we're looking at just these 4. So even though Scotty is number 1, you can see a lot of that's probably helped with the 225 here. So he might not be the true number 1. I'd probably say Russell Henley because he's just very consistent at all of the ranges. Top par 3s, Scotty, Henley, Russell Hall. Wow. Scotty, Russell Henley, Harry Hall, Keegan Bradley, Harris English, Sepp Straka, Matty Schmid, Goddard, Batia, Fitz. Batia is really good on these shorter par 3s. Not so much on the longer ones. You see, like Fitz being 10th in terms of total par 3s. He's really doing it at these long par 3s, and there's no 225 plus. So, that's not going to help him this week because he's been really bad at these other links here. So keep that in mind. Moving to par 4s. We're going to sort on par 4s, but it's really these 3 links here. So again, Scotty, Chris Goddard, 1st, 6th, 5th. Burns, top 20 in all, including 1st in 450 to 500. Jake Knapp's been great in all 3 of those ranges. Patrick Cantlay with an honorable mention. Connor's just outside the top 25 in this length, but good in the others. That's really about it, because most of these players either struggle in one range or kind of mediocre, at least for this field, on the others. If we look at just the 2 most important ranges, Scotty, Goddard, Burns, Knapp, Hideki, Cantlay, Tommy, Connors, Harry Hall, Aaron Rai to a lesser extent, top 25 in both. Victor Hovland just missing, 12th and 26th. Look at Shane Lowry, 4th and 7th. So he's not good at the 350 to 4, but he's good on these mid-length par 4s. Interesting. And then we're not going to do anything with par 5s. They just don't carry much weight here around TBC Southwind. So we'll finalize the show this evening, back over to Microsoft Excel. Now we'll go to the early look file. I'm just going to zoom in on these just very, very quickly. But we'll go to the early look file. This is performance the past 2 years at TBC Southwind in its current format with the 70-man playoff, no cut and all that. Yes, you see Glover 1st He didn't play here last year. Cantley, 2 events, averaged a 7th place finish. Hovland's averaged an 8th place finish. So interesting. Let's sort on some of these various metrics. See how these players have performed at TPC Southwind. So we'll sort first on approach. Your players who have been the best on approach: Victor, Xander, Aaron Rai. Has been great with the irons. Has not putt well here at all. Tommy, a little bit more of the same. Very good with the irons. He hasn't been as bad with the putter, but he still has not been good with the putter here. Defending champion Hideki, a lot of iron play, a lot of putting. That's always going to be a very good combination for you. Scotty, doing Scotty things, just maybe not making as many putts. Sungjae, Griot, players who have not hit their irons very well. Dietrich, Spieth has not hit his irons very well either year. Mackenzie Hughes has not done very well in terms of iron play. Look at Fitz. So as much as you were talking about Fitz earlier, like Fitz has kind of struggled here the past couple of years, Joanne. Averaged a 42nd. If we go to his page just very, very quickly, Fitz, what has he done? I know he really struggled either last year or the year before. Yeah, 2 years ago he was almost DFL. 66. He did top 20 last year, and then 5th 3 years ago. I believe this was still a WGC. Oh no, this was a playoff, but it was still a 125-man field. So he played well that week, but I'm saying in its current iteration, he hadn't been great. So, I don't know. Cam Young's not been good here with the irons. Morikawa, interesting to see. He's actually made putts around here, but his irons have been faulty. Interesting to note that. There's a look at some of your top iron players at TPC Southwind the last 2 years. Don't want to ignore putting. Your top putters. Again, Bobby Mack, it's only one time. Yeah. It's only one time. Wouldn't get carried away with it. Hideki gaining 8 last year. A little bit of an aberration, but he's putt well in 2 years. Mackenzie Hughes has putt well. JT Poston has putt well here at St. Jude. Xander, Burns, Victor. Despite Victor not being good on Bermuda, Victor's putt well here. Henley, Connors, Morikawa's putt well. Cantley. So there's your top putters at TPC Southwind. Your worst putters here in both tries. Sepp Straka has been horrendous on these greens. Finau's been really bad on these greens. Rory, who's not here, I apologize. Gosh dang it, remove him. Cam Young's been really bad on these greens. Rye's been really bad on these greens. Nick Taylor's been really bad on these greens. Chris Kirk, surprisingly, has been really bad on these greens. Keegan, bad on these greens. English, Griot, Tommy, really bad on these greens. Let's look at good drives. I'm pretty well set that I'm going to be putting quite a bit of emphasis in good drives. Top good drives game players: Aaron Rai, Tommy Fleetwood. There's Cantley, Scotty. Brian Harmon has been hitting a lot of fairways, not a whole lot of greens, so that probably tells me that his irons have been pretty bad. And not the worst, but not the best either. Been great off the tee, which means he's finding all his fairways and not doing much else. Rose, Kirk, Henley, Burns, Hovland, Connors, Morikawa, Siwoo. There's your top good drives game players around TPC Southwind. And then we'll just look at par fours, because I do want to get into some of the research, even though I didn't post any to social media. Top par 4 performers: Victor, Cantlay, Henley, gosh dang it, Morikawa, Hideki, Xander, Cam Davis. Doing well in these par 4s. Fleetwood, Rose, Sungjae, Burns to a lesser extent, Jaeger, Poston, Kirk. All right, I'll sort again on top or best finish. Again, with only 2 years of data, there isn't a whole lot to go on. But I will show you what each of those winners looked like in form-wise coming in. So the first thing we'll look at winner matrix. There isn't a whole lot here, but in its current iteration, yes, Lucas Glover won the first year, but Hideki played well at the 2023 and then wins. So maybe a little bit in terms of prior course success. Again, just not a whole lot to go on here. Their most recent tournament, Hideki played the Open, so he didn't play the 3M, didn't play the Wyndham, so we don't have the stats there, but he gained a little bit in distance. He just generally played well at the Open, which he did again this year. Even though it was a 66th, I mean, he had more. He just didn't seem like he gained a lot of birdies. He was just avoiding bogeys last year's Open. Now, in the past couple of months, Hideki had top 10 the U.S. Open. He top 10 the Memorial. And then we all know what kind of run Lucas Glover was on. Winner the Wyndham the week prior. But, 3 more top 10s, 2 more top 5s. Both of these champions were pretty solid with their irons. Look at how excellent they were in terms of off the tee. And Glover wasn't gaining a whole lot of distance. Look, he was doing it with his fairways. So that's why I'm thinking good drives gained as opposed to anything like distance-wise particularly, but even off the tee. Just more like fairways, more good drives from Glover. Even Hideki was finding fairways. I mean, this number doesn't look good, but it's a major. Like, you can accept that. Around the green was kind of spotty for Lucas Glover. The putting was everywhere for Lucas Glover. So that's why I don't know how much putting, if any, I want to put in the final mixed condition model. But clearly they were in form off the tee. They had been pretty darn good recently with their irons. They'd been giving themselves a lot of opportunities. I don't know how much we want to look at that considering how small these greens are. If a player hits the green, they're essentially giving themselves an opportunity with how small these greens are. Lucas Glover was, going playing really, really well, but he was also avoiding bogeys. Par 3s. This is another reason why I think par 3s are going to have pretty big importance. Look at how well both of these champions, their form was coming into, or with par 3s. They were playing really, really well on par 3s. So that's why I also think that's going to have a little bit of a factor. Well, that's what I have for you all in terms of a data dive show. Again, only 2 years of data, or at least 2 years of data that I'm comfortable analyzing, considering the format of the tournament has changed and whatnot. Well, that's what I have for you all in terms of a data dive show. Thanks to Rose and Joanne for jumping in chat. Congratulations again on your success last week. I was very, very happy to shout you all out, and I'll be happy to shout out other members of the community who have success. But thanks to you two for jumping in the chat. Thanks to everyone else out there who tunes in, watches, listens, supports the channel. I mentioned this in the intro, but I am grateful that you all have put me at the 200 subscriber mark. I know it's a very, very tiny channel, but I'm thankful for every one of you. So thank you for all the support. I really, really do appreciate that. Be on the lookout for Gabe's and my 2025 picks challenge, which we'll post, in the evening on Wednesday. So thanks again for all the support. Again, seeing that hit the 200 subscriber mark really, really made my day today. So thank you all for that. For all of the wagers you've made so far this week for the St. Jude, for all the wagers you're thinking about making this week for the St. Jude, And until I see you Wednesday night for the DFS Tactics show, may all your bets be profitable.